I found out my dad had a whole other family 3 days after his funeral. Not through a letter. Not through a confession. I found out because a woman showed up at our door, holding a boy's hand, and she looked at my mom and said, "I think you and I need to talk." That's the day my entire life turned into a lie. Stick with me till the end, because what happened after that knock on the door, it changed everything I thought I knew about my family, about trust, and honestly, about myself. Okay, let me back up a little. My name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is that I grew up thinking my family was normal. Not perfect, but normal. My dad worked long hours. My mom stayed home when we were young, then went back to work once my little sister started school. We weren't rich. We weren't poor either. We were just, okay, comfortable enough. My dad was the guy everyone in the neighborhood liked. He'd help fix your car for free. He'd remember your birthday even if you forgot his. Teachers loved him at parent-teacher meetings. He was, in every sense, a good man. That's the version of him I grew up believing. He traveled a lot for work. He was a regional sales manager for a company that sold industrial equipment, so he'd be gone too, sometimes 3 weeks a month. As a kid, I didn't think twice about it. That was just Dad's job. He'd come home with souvenirs, weird little trinkets from different cities, and we'd laugh about his terrible taste in gifts. Looking back now, I realize how much of my childhood was built on time he wasn't actually spending with us. But you don't question these things when you're young. You just accept your life as the only version of normal that exists. My mom worked hard too. She still is, one of the strongest people I know. She managed the house, managed us, managed everything, really, while carrying this quiet exhaustion that I only understood much later. We had our struggles, sure. Money was tight some months. My parents argued sometimes, like every couple does. But there was nothing that made me think our foundation was cracked. Until my dad passed away. He had a heart attack. Sudden. No warning. One day he was here, joking with us at dinner, and 3 days later, he was gone.
I was 24 at the time.
Old enough to understand grief, but nowhere near old enough to understand what was coming next. The funeral was, honestly, it's a blur. You know how grief does that? It kind of blends days together into this thick fog. I remember hugging people. I remember my mom not crying in public because she didn't want to fall apart in front of everyone. I remember thinking, okay, we'll get through this together. We'll heal as a family. 3 days after the funeral, there was a knock on the door. I opened it. A woman stood there, maybe mid-40s. She had a boy with her, probably around 12 years old. And the second I saw that boy's face, something in my stomach dropped. Because he looked like my dad. Like, unmistakably. Same eyes.
Same jaw.
It was like looking at an old photo of my father as a kid. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, frozen, holding the door handle. My mom came up behind me, and I heard her voice change instantly. Not confused. Not surprised, really. Almost like she'd been expecting this moment in some deep, quiet part of her for a long time. She said, "Come in." I still remember sitting in our living room, the same couch where we used to watch movies as a family, listening to this woman explain that she had been with my dad for almost 15 years. 15 years. On and off, she said, but consistent enough that they had a son together. The boy standing next to her, my half-brother, who I didn't even know existed until that exact moment. You might be wondering how something like this stays hidden for so long. Trust me, I asked the same question, over and over, for weeks afterward. Turns out my dad's work trips weren't always work trips. Sometimes they were visits to this other family in a city about 4 hours away. He'd built an entire second life there. A woman who thought she was in a real relationship with him. A child who called him dad on weekends, the same way I did every day. I remember my mom just sitting there, very still, very quiet. And I realized something in that moment that broke me more than the secret itself. She knew. Not everything. Not the boy, not the details. But she knew my dad was unfaithful. She'd known for years. She told me later, much later, that she'd found things, messages, receipts, missed calls at strange hours, and she'd confronted him more than once. He always had an excuse. And she always stayed. Because of us. Because of the house. the bills, the life she'd built. I never thought I'd say this, but hearing my mom admit that she knew and chose to stay quiet for our sake, that hurt almost as much as finding out about the other family. I felt like my entire childhood needed to be re-examined. Every trip he took, every long day at work, every excuse for missing my school events. I started replaying memories in my head, wondering which ones were real and which ones were just performances. And it didn't stop there. Because once the truth about the affair came out, more secrets started unraveling, like dominoes. We found out my dad had been secretly withdrawing money from our savings for years. Not huge amounts at once, small, steady withdrawals spread out so nobody would notice. But over 15 years, it added up to almost everything. Our emergency fund, the money my parents had been telling us for years was there just in case, was basically gone, drained to support this second household. My mom, who thought she had some financial safety net after my dad passed, suddenly found out she had almost nothing. On top of grieving her husband, a husband she now had to grieve while also processing this ultimate betrayal, she had to figure out how she was going to survive financially. I remember sitting with her at the kitchen table, going through bank statements, watching her hands shake as she saw transaction after transaction she never approved of, never even knew about. She kept saying, "I don't understand. I don't understand how I didn't see this." And honestly, I didn't have an answer for her, because I didn't understand either. The house we lived in still had a mortgage on it, more than we thought. Turns out my dad had taken out a second loan against it years earlier, using it to support his other family, and never told my mom. She thought the house was almost paid off. It wasn't even close. So now, on top of grief, on top of betrayal, we were facing the very real possibility of losing our home. I want you to imagine that for a second. Losing your father, finding out he had an entire secret family, discovering he drained your savings, and discovering you might lose the house you grew up in, all within the same month. That's not an exaggeration. That's genuinely what happened to us. I remember lying in bed some nights, just staring at the ceiling, feeling this heavy, suffocating kind of numbness. Not really sadness, not really anger, just numbness. Like my brain didn't know which emotion to process first, so it just shut down entirely. My little sister was 19 at the time, in her second year of college. She had to take a semester off because we genuinely didn't know if we could keep paying for her tuition and keep the house at the same time. She blamed herself for a while, thinking maybe if she'd worked more or needed less, things would have been different. I had to keep reminding her. None of this was her fault. None of it was any of our fault. I started picking up extra shifts at my job. My mom started looking for a second source of income at almost 50 years old, which, if you know anything about the job market, is not an easy thing to do. There were nights I'd come home from a double shift, completely drained, and just sit in my car in the driveway for like 20 minutes before going inside. Not because I didn't want to see my family, but because I needed those 20 minutes to just breathe, to not be strong for anyone, just for 20 minutes. I think that's something people don't talk about enough. The exhaustion of having to hold yourself together for everyone else, when really you're falling apart too. For a while I was angry, like deeply, uncomfortably angry. Angry at my dad for lying for 15 years. Angry at the situation. Angry, honestly, even at my mom for a bit, even though I knew that wasn't fair. She was a victim in this too. I remember one night, maybe 2 months after everything came out, my mom and I were sitting outside on the porch steps. She wasn't crying. She just looked tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. And she said something to me that I don't think I'll ever forget. She said, "I stayed because I thought protecting the family meant staying quiet. I thought if I said something, everything would fall apart. But everything fell apart anyway. It just took longer and it hurt more people." That hit me hard, because I realized something in that moment. Secrets don't protect people. They just delay the pain. And usually, they make the pain worse when it finally comes out, because now it's mixed with betrayal on top of whatever the original problem was. That was my turning point. Not some dramatic movie moment. Just a quiet conversation on porch steps with my mom, both of us exhausted, both of us finally being honest with each other for the first time in a long time. I realized I had two choices. I could stay stuck in this anger, blaming my dad, blaming the situation, letting this secret define the rest of my life. Or I could actually do something about it. Focus on what I could control. Help my mom rebuild. Support my sister. Figure out our finances instead of just being overwhelmed by them. So that's what I did. I sat down with my mom, and we made an actual plan. Not an emotional reaction, an actual plan. We talked to a financial advisor, someone recommended by a family friend, who agreed to a payment plan since we genuinely couldn't afford much upfront. We figured out exactly how much debt we had, how much equity was left in the house, and what our real options were. Turns out, we didn't have to sell the house immediately. It was tight, but by refinancing, cutting unnecessary expenses, and with both my mom and I working more, we could hold on to it. Barely, but we could. My sister went back to school the following semester. On a partial scholarship, she qualified for that we hadn't even known existed until we actually looked into it properly. And slowly, really slowly, things started to stabilize. Not fully heal. I don't think this is the kind of thing that ever fully heals, but stabilize. Here's something that surprised me, though. About 8 months after everything happened, I actually met my half-brother again. Not planned initially, my mom, of all people, reached out to that woman. Not out of forgiveness for my dad, but almost out of this strange, quiet solidarity. Two women who had both been lied to by the same man in different ways. That boy, my half-brother, he didn't choose this situation any more than I did. He grew up thinking he had a dad who visited on weekends, not realizing that same dad had an entire other family 4 hours away. We're not close, not like typical siblings.
But we talk sometimes.
And honestly, there's something oddly comforting about knowing someone else out there understands exactly what it feels like to have your whole image of your father shattered in one conversation. If you told me, a year before all this happened, that I'd eventually have a relationship, even a small one, with a half-brother I never knew existed because of my dad's affair, I wouldn't have believed you. Life takes these strange turns sometimes that you just can't predict. I think the biggest lesson I took from all of this is this. Secrets, especially in families, don't actually protect anyone. They just push the pain further down the road, and usually they make it heavier when it finally surfaces. My mom staying silent for years, I understand why she did it. She thought she was protecting us, protecting the family unit, keeping things stable. But that silence ended up costing us more in the end. Financially, emotionally, everything. If she had confronted things earlier, maybe the outcome would have been different. Maybe not better, necessarily, but different. At least it would have been our choice, made with full information, instead of a truth that exploded onto us all at once, years later, when we had no time to prepare. I also learned something about myself. I learned that I'm capable of handling way more than I ever thought I could. There were nights I genuinely didn't think we'd make it through, financially, emotionally, as a family. But we did. Not because we're extraordinary people, just because we kept showing up one difficult day at a time. My mom, despite everything, is doing better now. She has a stable job. The house is secure. She's even, and this surprised me, started dating again recently. Slowly, cautiously, but she's allowing herself that possibility of happiness again, which I honestly wasn't sure she'd ever want after everything. My sister finished her degree. She's doing well, building her own life, carrying a maturity now that most people her age don't have because she had to grow up fast in a hard way. And me? I'm still figuring things out, honestly. But I'm not the same person I was before that knock on the door. I'm more careful now about trusting the full picture of things rather than just the surface. I ask more questions. I pay more attention, not in a paranoid way, but in a way that says I don't want to be blindsided like that again. You know, when I started thinking about sharing the story, I went back and forth for a long time. It's not easy, putting something this personal, this painful, out into the world for strangers to hear. But I think there's something important in it. Something a lot of people need to hear. If you're keeping a secret right now, one that you think is protecting someone, protecting your family, protecting the peace, I'd ask you to really think about what you're actually protecting. Sometimes silence isn't protection. Sometimes it's just delaying an explosion. And if you're on the other side of this, if you've recently found out a truth that shattered everything you thought you knew about your family, about someone you loved, I want you to know something. It doesn't stay this heavy forever. It gets different. Not necessarily easier, but different. More manageable. You find a new normal, even if it's nothing like the normal you had before. We didn't choose what happened to us. None of us do, in situations like this. But we do get to choose what we do afterward. We get to choose whether we let it destroy us completely, or whether we rebuild piece by piece, even with cracks still showing. My family isn't the same as it was before. It never will be. But in some strange way, we're more honest with each other now than we ever were before. And maybe that's the only real silver lining in all of this. We don't hide things from each other anymore. We learned, the hardest way possible, what silence actually costs. If this story affected you in any way, if it reminded you of something in your own life, or just made you feel a little less alone in whatever you're going through right now, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to hear more real stories like this, raw, honest, no sugarcoating, make sure you subscribe, because there are more coming. Thank you for listening to this. Genuinely. Sharing this wasn't easy, but somehow, it helps to know it's not just sitting inside me anymore. Take care of yourselves. And take care of the people around you. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I'll see you in the next one.